I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need. In the off-white Rari, baby, we run the streets. I'm a K-I-N-G, Westside royalty. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, that's all you need. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Steven Basita, on my podcast, Get It, and we are on the social Nostra network. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching this on IG Live, please follow us. And of course, all of our listeners on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Pandora, and every other outlet we have, welcome. Today's guest is Mario West. So Mario West is a retired player from the NBA. And we're just going to dive into his journey and really the ups and downs and how he got to where he is or was in NBA and now where he is in his life now and what he's doing. So thank you so much, my man, for joining us today.
Man, I appreciate you having me on.
So I want to dive right in and get into your journey because that's something that is, especially in today's age, there's so much misinformation out there. And I've been doing this series with some of my high school kids that were really good players and just got burnt out and quit. Some of my guys that play college. And then, of course, I like to get into the guys that in D1 level through the JC level, and then getting into the guys that have made it with pretty much impossible odds. And for context, for people to understand just how hard it was for you to even get to where you were. I'm going to repeat the stats here. Less than 1.8% of high school varsity athletes play college sports. That's from the JC level to the D1 level. So less than 2 kids out of every 100 are going to play in college that played varsity basketball. Then only 30 people are guaranteed a spot on an NBA roster every year from the draft. It's only the first round. If you get drafted in the first round, you're one of 30 that's guaranteed a roster spot. If you get drafted in the second round, you're not guaranteed anything. And there's only 60 guys that get drafted every year out of the tens of thousands of guys in this country alone that play college, not to mention worldwide. And of course, we draft guys from Africa, from Europe, from China. So you're competing, your margin of making it to the pro, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery than you do playing a professional sport, just so people have context to that. You've accomplished that. So let's start where your journey started. When did you know that you wanted to play professional basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I want to start off, man. I have to give praise to God and just, what he's allowed me to do throughout my life and the people that he's allowed me to meet and, along that journey. So definitely want to start off there. But I started playing the game of basketball at the age of 7. I started at the Boys and Girls Club in Huntsville, Alabama, which is where I was born. Basketball was something that was natural for me, but more importantly, it was something that all of my uncles and cousins and aunties, like I come from a huge family of nothing but athletes. Like the women, like my aunties and some of my girl cousins, they all played basketball, volleyball. They had like great size. They were quick. All of my uncles and cousins, male cousins, they played, every sport that you can name it. And, I grew up, during the time where, that we had the Nintendo and everything like that and Sega, but we had to be outside. And so it was one of those things where, just being active and the Boys and Girls Club was a resource, to keep, young children off the street. In the game of basketball, like I said, it was just something that was natural and just something that I took a liking to. And I remember at the age of 7, just watching Michael Jordan defend his dream, which is my brand, and we can get into that later. But that was just my favorite player, growing up. Everybody wanted to be like Mike. I wanted to be like Mike. I wanted to be like, my uncles. And so I would just try to emulate a lot of things that they were doing out there on the court that I would see, whether I was watching an NBA game or watching my uncles, at the playground or at the rec center. And it's something that I started to dream, one day I want to play in the NBA.
Everybody still wants to be like Mike.
Absolutely.
Quick side note. So I had a acquaintanceship with Kobe Bryant, and had the blessing of spending a little bit of time with him. And it's funny because he talks about how his journey was, spurred on by Michael Jordan. And the same with LeBron. Like, all the greats still talk to Michael, and that's who they want to emulate. So it's funny that you say that, because that's still a thing. Everybody wants to be like Mike. But so you growing up, you get that passion, you know what you want, and now you begin your trek through. Did you play club at all, or did you just play rec ball? Then you got into high school, and that's where it really kicked in for you.
Yeah, so I played rec ball up until I got in middle school, and then I played basketball in middle school and then high school. But I know the AAU circuit, man, it's just something that's crazy, and we don't have to really teeter with that. But unfortunately, man, I didn't. That was I think something that limited me in terms of the exposure, because I was considered a sleeper. I didn't play, any AAU ball, the summers, because I moved to Douglasville, Georgia, which is, I consider my hometown, because I've, been living there, over 20 years, here outside of Atlanta. But I say that to say that my summers, I would go back to Huntsville, Alabama, to spend time with my relatives. And that's really where my game advanced. One thing that I can say that really helped me advance my game was I always played against older kids. Younger kids, not to brag on myself, but kids my age, growing up, I used to dominate, that age group. And so the challenge was, playing against, older kids of, understanding the hustle and things like that, because you don't get the ball, when you're playing against older kids. And so that's really how I developed some of those defensive principles and things that I was known for, and just playing, outworking, everyone. And so that's kind of like where that all started.
It's funny that you say that, because I preach this to my kids all the time. Like, go to the park where the college kids are at. And like you, so I grew up really low income. So my parents didn't have money to send me to play AAU ball. And with that, I wasn't that great. So I wasn't going to make an AAU team and then get scholarshiped. Having said that, I went to the local JC starting my junior year in high school. It's a 30-minute drive. I would literally go right after school. I would drive to the local JC, and I'd play pickup with all the college guys for 2, 3, 4 hours. And I did that Monday through Friday. And I did that for 2 years. And I was not like you. I was not leaps and bounds better than my peers. I was average in a lot of ways. Maybe I excelled in some ways, but I was definitely further behind in other ways. Playing with those local JC guys, those guys were all going D1. They were going JC because they all had crappy grades. Plain and simple. And man, that was where I truly saw my growth. And then that's when the separation happened for me. The kids that I was just kind of in the same pool with, after going and playing ball 2, 3, 4 hours a day with these JC guys who were monsters. I'm 6'3". I'm playing dudes that were 6'9", and they were just destroying my life. And, they loved it, because they would, just tear me up. And then they'd have some choice words to say. I got kicked a couple times, spit on. I couldn't do anything. Also, but JC was like in a really bad area, so it was all hood guys. And I'm a white guy with red hair. I was going to get my butt kicked, so I just had to take it. But I tell you what, man, what that did for me and how that prepared me for my own college experience, there's nothing else like it. And so we're always telling our kids, play with older kids. And a lot of my AAU teams, we play them up. We don't care if we win or lose. We're just trying to get them ready for high school and to have careers. So that's a really big, sound piece of advice that I want people to understand. If you're trying to better yourself and you're trying to actually have a chance to play in college and even play professionally, nobody cares if you're the best 12U player out of the 12U players. Right? Like, how do you play against kids that are older? Because when you go to high school, as a freshman, you should be striving to play on the JV team, and you should be striving to be a starter. Well, if you're going to be on the JV team, you're going to play kids that are juniors and sophomores, and they're not going to respect you. So you have to put in the work against older kids earlier, so there's not that intimidation factor, because you're going to be playing older kids. As a sophomore, the goal should be playing varsity if you're going to get minutes. If you're not going to get minutes, play one more year of JV and then do 2 years of varsity, but you're still going to be playing older kids until you're a senior. And then when you go to college, you're the youngest again, especially if you're going to go to a 4-year school, which is why a lot of freshmen redshirt their first year. So you get a year to get bigger, get faster, get stronger, and get accustomed to playing those older guys. But hopping back in, so understanding, okay, the AAU thing obviously wasn't something you were able to do, but you were viewed as a sleeper. So obviously playing the older kids and putting in that work paid off. So how was your junior and senior year? And did you play varsity just 2 years, or did you play varsity 3?
No, actually, I played all 4. Funny story. So as a freshman, went out for the freshman team, obviously made the freshman team, and we had a scrimmage, just a scrimmage between, with the other freshmen, right, or whatever. So it was like a freshman inter-squad game, and the head coach for the varsity was there. And I kid you not, I had 40 in that scrimmage, and my team won. And so the head coach of the varsity team at the time, he was like, you know what, man, there's no way he's staying on varsity. I could use him, there's no way that he's staying on the freshman team. I could use him on the varsity team. And so I never played a freshman game. Never, not one single freshman game. I practiced, with the freshman team, I think like for that week. And then we had, after a week of practice, we did that inter-squad game. And then, like I said, the varsity coach was impressed. I played in a JV game, I think like twice. He just wanted me to get some experience and some playing time. And then after that, I got inserted maybe like a quarter of the way, maybe like after the 7th or 8th game or something like that. I got inserted into the starting lineup for varsity, and then I never looked back. And so it was one of those things. It's like, experience is the best teacher, for anything. When you look in terms of not only just basketball, but any job, it's always about, your experience and qualifications and things of that nature. And so for me, it really paid dividends, playing against the older crowd. And it brings out the best. Oftentimes we're uncomfortable as we're being stretched so many different ways. Like, this is uncomfortable for me. But will you make room? Do you have that growth mindset, or do you have that fixed mindset? That growth mindset says, you know what? I'm okay with being uncomfortable, and I can, allow myself to learn from others and learn new things and grow. And then ultimately that's going to help me become my better version.
I know where you got that from. Fixed mindset and growth mindset. That's Carol DeWick.
Who is that?
Carol DeWick. You haven't read her book, Mindset?
No, I've heard so many people,
she specifically uses those phrases, growth mindset and fixed mindset.
Okay.
And so I read that book. I'm a big reader when I can. And even when I can't, I still read books. And that was one of the best books I've ever read in my life. I actually did a podcast on books that will change your life and help continue to grow you. That's my number one book. It's great.
Oh, well, the person, I can't remember who I heard it from, but I'm sure, they might have, heard the book. It's one of those.
It's great. I love that terminology because that's very accurate. People don't understand that sports is such a mental thing. And, people always say, well, sports is 90% mental. Well, I tell that to my kids. I'm like, hey, do you know what that means though? Like, honestly, if you don't know what it means, there's other kids here that also don't know what it means. Just raise your hand. And kids will always raise their hand. I said, I'm so glad you're being honest, because it's so important that you understand that. I said, look, mindset is when you don't feel good in the morning and you still wake up at 6 a.m. and go do your run. Mindset is when you're sore from your workout yesterday and you still go work out again the next day, and you do it again the day after that and the day after that, and you push yourself even harder. Mindset is when you just had a horrible game and you want to go cry in a closet, but you grab your basketball and you go out and you go shoot 500 shots. Mindset is putting in all the work that no one else is going to put in. And that's something that, unfortunately, most people don't explain and most people don't even understand. And I'm really glad that you hit on that. So you have that mindset. You're moving through your high school career now. And so let's talk about your first offer. What year did that come? And then what accolades did you win in high school, or awards, or what kind of accomplishments did you have?
So it was always my dream to go to a big time school, Division I school. as I mentioned, earlier, that some of my biggest influences, came from my uncles. And one uncle in particular, shout out to my uncle Howard Pride, was Mr. Basketball in the state of Alabama, received a lot of accolades for not only for basketball, but football. He was actually drafted his senior year in baseball, and that was like his third sport. But just phenomenal athlete, to say the least. And so he went on to play at Vanderbilt and graduated and played at Vanderbilt. I had another cousin that went on to play Division I football at the University of Alabama. So when you grow up, and these are like my role models and heroes, not only in terms of just sports, but just people, just genuine, just people everyone loved. I wanted to follow along that same footpath. And so it was like, man, I'm here in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta. I want to go to Georgia Tech. And so I didn't receive the type of offers that I thought I would have. Like I said, Georgia Tech was my dream school. So it was a lot of smaller schools. I had Clemson, show some interest. I remember I used to get letters. I used to get a lot of letters. I used to have my shoebox and put the letters. And I'm like, wow, and you have that feeling like, oh, I got another letter. But then when it came time to actually sign, like during my senior year, I still hadn't signed. And so, that was.
You just dated yourself.
Yeah.
They don't do letters no more. Now they do text messages and emails. They do social media sends.
Oh yeah, but it's one of those things where you look at where I look at it now. My whole take on going to a big time school. Obviously, I was blessed and had a wonderful experience at Georgia Tech, and playing for Coach Hewitt and the relationships I built there and the things that we accomplished at Georgia Tech. But my mindset is different now in terms of a school. Like you can go to a small school and still have success.
Yes.
I think it's just one of those things. It's like bloom wherever you plant it. So if I'm a Dame Lillard and I go to Weber, or if I go to San Diego State, if I'm a Kauai and, wherever it is, CJ McCollum, some of these guys, man, they still find a way. And, just phrase right there, bloom wherever you plant it, man. You can make the most of that opportunity. So.
Well, and you see it just this past year with Gonzaga going undefeated until the championship game against Baylor, and they're in a small conference.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not in a Power 5 conference. They're not even considered a high major D1. They're considered mid-major D1.
Yeah.
All right. So what year did you get your first interest letter? Was that your junior year?
Junior year. Yep.
And do you remember who it was?
I got a letter. Actually, we participated in the team camp at Clemson. Okay. So I got, it was either Clemson or like Gardner Webb, because we also went to a team camp in Gardner Webb. So those were like my first Gardner Webb, Clemson, and like Shorter College.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you get the letter, and when did you get the letter for your dream school?
So actually, quick story on how my dream school, Georgia Tech. So at the time I was a senior at Douglas County High School. A guy by the name who would later become my teammate, shout out to Josh Smith, got nothing but love for him. Josh Smith at the time was playing at McEachern High School.
Okay.
We were playing McEachern on the road. And, one of the things that I tell as I'm speaking to camps, as I'm speaking to other kids, I tell them, you never know who's watching you. So you always want to make sure that first impression is your best impression. So if you're playing a game of basketball, man, you want to make sure that you go out and give your best. Not to say that you're going to make every shot, have zero turnovers, but you just want to put your best foot forward. And also when you're in the community, because you never know who's watching. So I say all that to say, I didn't know that Coach Hewitt was there and that he was actually recruiting Josh Smith. He was actually there at the game. I went out and played the game that I love and, that I'm always playing, my hardest, and had a really good game, and my team won so much that I impressed Coach Hewitt to be like, man, I came to see, Josh Smith, but who is this kid, Mario West? And so he reached out like the next day, reached out to my head coach and asked, what other college have shown interest and, what would I be interested in coming to Georgia Tech? They didn't have a scholarship available, but he asked, how are your grades? How is his grades? And, would he be interested in walking on? And so that started the initial dialogue between my head coach and Coach Hewitt at Georgia Tech and kind of got the ball rolling. And ultimately, I ended up walking on to Georgia Tech, my first year. And then I was able to earn a scholarship I think sometimes I have this quote. I'm a big movie guy. I love to read books too as well. One of my favorite movies, favorite actor is Denzel Washington. He played in the movie The Hurricane. And there's a quote in there that says, sometimes people forget that small doors open up into large rooms. He who bemoans the lack of opportunity sometimes forgets that small doors open up into large rooms. And so I say that to say that the small door, small window of me walking on to Georgia Tech, that opened up into a bigger opportunity once I got on and I was able to earn a scholarship. Then I was able to participate in the slam dunk competition. I was able to go to the Final Four and go to the national championship. I was able to get a degree, like so many different things, a domino effect by, that small door of me just walking on to Georgia Tech.
And it's not uncommon either. There's a lot of players that they walk on. And so I'm a strength conditioning coach as well, and I owned a gym business prior to COVID. I trained a lot of athletes that eventually became pro athletes, but I trained them when they were like elementary school, junior high. One of the kids I trained, his name's Joshua Love, and he was ranked like number 3 QB in California. He ended up getting a preferred walk-on status to San Jose State. He redshirted his first year. He got scholarship the next 4 years. Got picked up by the Rams, and I think he's with the Browns now. But like you just said, it's a small door into a large room, and you just don't know. And a lot of kids think that they have to be getting the D1 offer. Oh man, I got to play at Duke, or I got to play at UCLA or one of those schools. It's like you don't. And if you're paying attention to people that are getting drafted, like you said, people are getting drafted at small D1, mid-major D1 schools and having great careers. And it's just as good, and there's guys that start off playing at JC and make their way up and then make their way up, or they're starting off at D2. And your journey, you don't know where it's going to go, but I think that's really important. And again, you have so much wisdom in the things that you're saying. I hope people are really listening to this, including parents, because for all you parents out there listening to this, your kid has to put in the work, but if they're not a D1 player yet, don't try and force it. And I tell my parents all the time, look, your kid's playing college basketball. Let them play college basketball. It doesn't matter what level it is. Things change. Kids always go back and play to JC for a year and then go to D1, or maybe they're at a D2 and they do really well a couple of years and then a D1 picks them up. You don't know what that journey is going to be like, but let your kid have that journey. You're putting all this extra stuff that doesn't need to be put on them. And if they want it bad enough and they work hard enough, they will progress. And you're not signing a 4-year deal. You're signing for a year. You're committing to a school for a year, and then you can transfer. Happens all the time, but you can transfer up to. And I think that people lose sight of that. I think that's really important. So now you go to Georgia Tech, and let's hop into your experience at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, so like I said, my experience at Georgia Tech was a great experience. I actually redshirted myself. It was one of those things where, in Douglasville, my hometown, I was the man. I was a big fish, and there were some other athletes, but I really, really stood out, during my senior year. I was the player of the year in the county in Douglasville. And so it was like, man, I was the man. So now, you transform and you now are in college, and now it's like no one knows Mario West. No one cares who you are or what you did. So now I got to start all that over, that whole process of reinventing myself and making a name for myself. But, a lot of kids, I think they're against redshirting, but for me, it was one of the best things ever, one of the best decisions that I made, because academically, Georgia Tech is no joke. And I was a good student, that worked extremely, extremely hard. But, just getting adjusted to the curriculum, and then also the true meaning of student athlete. Like, you're a student first, and then you're athlete, and the practice schedule and everything like that. But those guys had already, at the time, as I'm a freshman now, the sophomores, they had been, a year of lifting weights, a year of going to class and balancing the schedules and time management and those things like that. And so, for someone who wasn't used to that, man, it's a total shock. And it could also be intimidating, And so I had to say that I took that year to red shirt to really just to kind of step back from basketball and just like really just pay attention to the game itself, because the game was too fast for me. Not only that, but then also make the adjustment of now sitting in these huge classrooms, having meeting with the teacher one-on-one, and also the tutors and everything like that. And so once I got down academically, what I need to get down academically, then everything on the court just started to just naturally work itself out. You know what I'm saying? Because if you put in the work, you know, with the weight trainer and the individual instruction with the coaches and everything like that, you know, everything is going to take care of itself. But I had to get the job done in the classroom, and then that translated to on the court.
So during your 4 years of playing, what were the accomplishments that you achieved at Georgia Tech?
Oh, wow. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we went to the Final Four, made it all the way to the national championship. This was my first year after I redshirted. We unfortunately lost in the national championship. We lost to UConn. They were a stacked team.
What year?
This was 2004. 2004. So when I went in as a freshman, I was a freshman. Chris Bosh, he did 1 year, but we were freshmen together at the same time.
Yep.
And then, you know, of course, man, he had to go on and go to the NBA, man. I mean, honestly, he could have went straight out of high school. But I would have liked to have seen us, you know, that Georgia Tech squad that went all the way to the national championship with Chris Bosh, you know, on that squad. But UConn, man, you got to shout out to UConn. They had a phenomenal squad. They had Ben Gordon, Emeka Okafor, Marcus Williams, Charlie V, my God, Charlie V. Shout out Charlie Villanueva. I mean, with Devin Brown. I think it was Devin Brown or something like that, man. They had, I mean, just a list. They had like 5 pros.
I remember watching. I'm a huge, like, I love college basketball more than anything else, more than pro ball, more than anything else. College basketball is my thing. And I've watched every national championship since 2001.
Wow.
And I have not missed a national championship. And I usually watch a lot of games during March Madness. In college, I made a lot of money off of March Madness, actually. But man, I tell you what, that was a good game. And for UConn to get to where they were, you know, they had some battles. And I remember watching it. And of course, I do have a Pac-12. It was Pac-10 then. Now it's Pac-12. Pac-12 bias. I'm a West Coast kid. Grew up in Washington State. I'm a huge John Wooden fan. And the one regret in my life, maybe the only regret in my life, is my second year living in Southern California. I went to the John Wooden Classic at the Honda Center. And I sat 2 rows behind John Wooden. And I got there early. I was there like 90 minutes before the games even started, just to take in the experience. And so he's sitting up there, and he's swarmed by security guards, right? He was much older at this time. And I was so freaking listen, I've been around, I've trained celebrities, I've got friends who are celebrities, family, I've worked with pro athletes, I've done all kinds of stuff. I don't get starstruck. I couldn't muster up the strength to simply just step over one set of benches and say, hey, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to shake your hand. You're like a legend to me. I just want to like say thank you, like just anything. Just spit out some English and just say hi and shake his hand. I wussed out, man. I couldn't do it. I couldn't muster up the strength. And the security didn't matter, right? Like they're not protecting him from every angle. It's not like I'm going to get tackled. And there wasn't anybody there yet. But, man, I just wussed out. And then he died that year. And I never got a chance ever again to have an opportunity to just shake his hand and tell him what he meant to me. And I was so angry with myself. I said, I will never, for the rest of my life, let an opportunity like that pass me by. And, man, so tough. But so big Pac-10 fan, big UCLA fan, although they're not my number one school because I am from Washington State. So Gonzaga is my number one. But Yeah, man. I had hopes that some of those Pac-10 teams would survive, and unfortunately they didn't make it. But we thought great game there. And so you go through, you have your college experience. So now you're getting ready for the next phase of your life. So when did you start getting contacted by agents? When did the talk of you making it to the NBA start? And then just kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So, I played, like I said, I did my 4 years at Georgia Tech. I was fortunate enough, which is one of my proudest accomplishments, that I got my degree and got my degree in business management. And so when you redshirt, you still have that extra year. And so I still had the extra year to play. I started a second degree in economics. And so played out that last year. I played with two talented freshmen during my last year at Georgia Tech. One that's still currently playing in the NBA right now, and a good friend of mine, Thad Young, who's playing for the Chicago Bulls. Also, Javaris Crittenton was one of the most talented, physically gifted, point guards that we had come through Georgia Tech at the time as well. And, he spent some time with the Lakers, and then I think with the Grizzlies and Wizards, and, was just phenomenal. But I say that to say that during my final year at Georgia Tech, I participated in a slam dunk competition. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to my quote earlier about small doors opening up, to large rooms. And I wasn't the favorite to win the slam dunk competition. I actually got the nerve to ask Coach Hewitt if he could make a phone call to see if I can get in, because the slam dunk competition, that they have the Final Four, the 3-point contest and everything like that during the Final Four. That was at Georgia State, which is literally across the street from Georgia Tech. And I was like, look, man, it's local. I got to be in it. Coach, can you please just make a phone call and see? He made a phone call 20 minutes later. He said, look, you're in. And so there was a guy by the name of Brent Petway who played at the University of Michigan, 6'8", his athleticism, man, was just off the charts. He was the favorite to win the slam dunk competition. I reached out prior to the dunk competition. I reached out to my big brother, Ishmael Muhammad, who is arguably the best dunker that college has ever seen. And so I reached out to him to help me put together a routine. And make a long story short, man, I won the slam dunk competition. That gave me the exposure that I needed, because no one was checking for me. I didn't have any NBA workouts. Not only did I have any NBA workouts, I wasn't on anyone's radar to get drafted. I averaged 4.3 points a game or something like that during my senior season. So, if you look from a statistical standpoint, the stats wasn't there.
Right.
So I had a tryout to make the Hawks Summer League team. And at the time, the Hawks had drafted AC Law and Al Horford, who was still my good friend. Shout out to those two. And so I just did what I did in college, just played hard, just did whatever was asked. And, there was always enough. And I think sometimes guys get caught up when you're chasing a dream and you're not getting the type of attention that you want, or that you feel like that is warranted. If you put in the work, man, the work is going to speak for itself. You know what I mean? And then also you have to be strong mentally to trust that the things that you're doing is going to pay off at some point. And so that was just one of those things where I just was like, I remember watching the draft, and I was hoping that with the I knew I wasn't going to get drafted first round, but I was like, you know what, man, somehow, some way, God, please let my name be called with the last pick. And it wasn't called with the last pick. I think they called, I want to say they called, you can look this up. I want to say they called Vernon, the point guard from Clemson, a point guard from Clemson. And, I was happy for him, but at the same time, it's like, okay, my name didn't get called. So look, what else can I do? And so I had hired an agent at that point, someone that I knew that represented the local guys here in Atlanta. And he said, hey, man, I'll get you a tryout to make the summer league, like no guarantees. If a man wants, listen to this is something that I hope that the listeners hear this. If any man wants more than an opportunity, he's ungrateful. If any man wants more than an opportunity, he's ungrateful. And for me, that's all I wanted was just the opportunity. He said, look, no guarantees. I said, fine. Just give me an opportunity to try out for the summer league team. And there's a story behind that, but I made the summer league team, and that was the start of me actually having that dream or reality of playing in the NBA coming true.
All right, so let's get into the NBA now. So you do well in summer league, And then what is your contract? Is it a 1-year contract? How does that work out for you?
So went undrafted, played summer league. And what I did in summer league, like I said, when you look at what I did, it was like one of those things where if you were a GM or you're a coach, it was like, man, that guy just plays so hard. Like, some coaches just likes that. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, well, man, he's going to be a 2, he's going to be a 3. I was kind of one of those positionless players. And so just played extremely hard. And then I got invited back to veterans camp. And then that's when I really kind of separated myself from the other guys trying to make a team and everything like that. And so it was just one of those things where, looking back, it's like, wow, I was really able, to do that. So I ended up playing in veterans camp. And then I made the opening day roster. My contract was non-guaranteed for the league minimum. So at the time, the minimum was like $400,000. And so I had to wait until like January 15th. If I was still on the roster then my contract, that full league minimum of $400,000 would be fully guaranteed. So at any given time, you know what I'm saying, prior to that opening day in November, like November 1st of when the season started, or October 31st, until they could have cut me at any time.
Right.
And they wouldn't have to pay me anymore. So it was just kind of like one of those, day by day, hey, look, you got to show in every single day. You can't get comfortable. I think sometimes too, the guys, when they make it, or when you pray for something, or you work hard for something and you receive it, and it's like, oh, I can relax. And then they stop doing those things that they did to get it. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, for me, I didn't take it for granted, and I didn't stop that turned me up even more.
How many years were you in the NBA for?
I was in the NBA for 3.5 years. So I spent some time in the D League. After my first year in the NBA with the Hawks, I went through the same identical process of playing summer league, trying to make the roster to opening day roster, and then my contract not being fully guaranteed. And then going into my 3rd year with the Hawks, they had a coaching change, and then I actually got cut. Probably one of the most devastating things that ever happened to me, because as a 7-year-old boy, that's all I want to do is play in the NBA. Right. And I got cut, and then I went to which was the best thing. I went to the D League. A lot of people look at the D League like a demotion. It's a grind there. I mean, obviously coming from the NBA, there's a lot of things that makes it challenging, but it was the best thing for me because I was able to regain my confidence and also showcase that I can do a lot of different things. And so, my last year in the NBA was 2011 with the Nets, and then there was a lockout, and then that's when I started my overseas career.
How long did you play overseas for?
I played overseas for 6 years.
Okay. That's a good career. And people sleep on overseas, man.
No, man, it's one of the best experiences. I think when you think about the game of basketball and the relationship that it allows you to build and to bridge with other people from different backgrounds, from different ethnicities, the common language that we all spoke was that round ball. And I played in the Philippines, was phenomenal. Played in Italy. I played in France, Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Argentina, and got to really embrace and experience different cultures and meet with some different people, like I said, from different backgrounds. And I'm still friends with to this day.
That's awesome. And what I knew I was never going to be in the NBA once I got to college. Like, I knew, but I wanted to play overseas. That was my goal. Is have a few years. I had some friends who had played overseas, and, it was great fun. They made, back at the time, it was the mid 2000s, but their housing was paid for, their cars were paid for, their meals were paid for, their transportation was paid for, like their whole living expenses were paid for. And they ended up getting, they might've been low 6-figure contracts, but they were still making 6 figures to play basketball, and they didn't have any expenses. And if you're financially smart, you do that for 2, 3, 4 years, you can really walk away debt-free. Mm-hmm. You can have a bank account with a lot of money in it, and then you can start whatever career you're going to start afterwards, and you're ahead of the game. And it's a huge blessing, and people don't understand that. But it is a huge blessing, and I know that's like you said, it's a really good experience for the people that get to do it. I've never heard of anybody not having a good time doing it. But now let's get into, so you've gone through your career, and your career is now over. So now what are you up to? also tell people how they can follow you and be part of your journey. And just walk us through what you started with, where you're at now, and we'll wrap things up.
Yeah. So now I'm working at the NBPA as a director of Off the Court. Off the Court is essentially a transition program that was created to serve and assist players following their professional career. We have a number of resources at the NBPA to help guys, kind of figure out what that next chapter is going to be like. If I'm being quite honest, when I retired, so it's two things. You either leave the game on your own terms or the game leaves you. And for me, the game had left me as I was over in Argentina. I unfortunately tore my Achilles. And even though I went through the whole rehab process and everything like that, I just wasn't the same player. But at the time, I was 31, and I felt like I had a 3 to 4 year window of good basketball left in me because my body felt that great. But unfortunately, Father Time is undefeated. And so I had to retire. I had to, look, elsewhere and what else I was going to do or what I wanted to do. And for me, like I said, because, athletes sometimes think that we have time, but we really, really don't, and so I didn't plan as best I could to plan, my next chapter after basketball. And so this role that I'm now in, I'm very passionate about, I want to connect with players to make sure that they know, like, look, we have resources here to help you guys figure out what you want to do. As you probably just saw, LaMarcus Aldridge just came out, he's had to step away from the game, that he loved and that he's been playing and was open that he's been depressed about it, so.
Well, it's hard, right? Because I think what most people don't understand, especially if you haven't played high-level sports, is it becomes part of your identity. Mm-hmm. And, I played junior college for 2 years, and I got an offer to play at Western Oregon, which is an NCAA D2 school. And that's where I thought I was going to be able to continue my career. I had a little bit of interest from other schools, but nothing crazy. So Western Oregon was kind of it. I drove down there, went and ran with the guys, did well. I actually didn't even realize I went down there and I played and I did all this workouts and everything. And I had like stage 3 pneumonia, whatever the worst one is, the one that kills people. That's what I had. I didn't even know I had it. I went home and I really was hurting. And so I went to the doctor. And anyway, so, and that's where I found out how bad it was. But, I talked to the coach and I just couldn't redshirt. That was the condition. I'd get a scholarship, I'd continue my career, but I couldn't redshirt. So I was fine with that. And then I came to find out that I had destroyed both my ankles, which I had got hurt my freshman year, my left ankle, and then my right ankle my sophomore year, but I didn't know how bad it was until I went and did my physical and realized I was going to have to redshirt, and then that was the end of my career. And it was very challenging for me. I went through a huge identity crisis. I don't know that I was I've gone through some depression later in my life due to some unfortunate stuff that happened with me and my wife and just a series of miscarriages that we had. But I was definitely distraught. I was super upset. It took me a long time to get over it. And it is because you invest so much of your time, energy, and effort into something. And I love the sport of basketball. And I never thought I was going to be coaching. And when my career ended, it didn't end on good terms. And I was super, super pissed, man. I was so mad. I didn't really want to play basketball anymore. I basically took a year off. So I took a year off of school and just worked, rehab my ankles. I was still thinking I might actually try and go play somewhere. And just took a full year away from the game. Then doing that, I worked out. I was really consistent in working out and stuff, but didn't even touch a basketball. And then, I played intramurals at Central Washington University where I graduated from. And I had fun just playing for fun, but that's been my career ever since. I play for fun when I have a chance, or I play with my guys, which is fun at times. It depends. I always get, every single kid wants to come at me. Like, dude, I'm getting older, man. It's getting a little tougher. I've got kids that go Division I, and the last kid I played that is currently Division I is Judah Brown. He's at St. Mary's. So his senior year, we're at a practice. He's, with my top team, and he got there early because his two younger brothers played for my younger teams. And I don't know, man. I don't remember how it got started, but he started chipping at me. I was like, listen, dude, I don't care where you're going. Like, he knew he was going to St. Mary's already. I was like, I don't care where you're going. I will work you out. And he's like, come get it. And I'm 6'3". He's 6'7". And so, he's a good kid, great family. He's chipping away. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's get the basketball then. Let's go. So he starts with the ball. And he actually got up on me. I was actually a little nervous because we play 2s and 1s to 11, right? Make it, take it. And he was up like 7-2 or maybe 8-2. He was beating on me pretty good. And I was like, this is not happening. The second I got that ball back, I went up on him and I was up 10-8. We're only playing to 11. And I go up and, I've got those old man moves, dude. But he had caught on because I've been scoring on him with these old man moves and the fakes and all that stuff, and the constant pivots and stuff. And I thought I got him, and he's so tall and so long, man. I got the ball up, and he just pinned the ball against the backboard, and he beat me 11-10. I was so mad. I couldn't freaking believe it. I was like, dang it. Never let me live this down, though. Because, of course, like most guys, he's trying to make it to the pros. And, St. Mary's had a tough year this year, but they're in the same conference as Gonzaga, man. And it's going to be hard. Gonzaga's got a bit of a powerhouse team right now. They're going to be hard to beat.
Absolutely.
But so getting into a little bit more of what you're doing here. So tell us how we can follow you. And then, if people want to see the projects that you're working on and what you're doing, how they can get alongside that. And you also have a book, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, you can follow me. I'm on Instagram. You can follow me, Mario West 6 on Instagram. I also have a nonprofit, 501(c)(3). It's called the Mario West Foundation. We provide scholarships to my alma mater, my high school, and also benevolent assistance to those in need and feeding the homeless. And so I'm big on giving back. To whom much is given, much is required. God has done some amazing and is doing some amazing things in my life. And I'm just a firm believer of all of the resources and things that he's given me that just weren't for my benefit, that it was to benefit others as well. So I just enjoy giving back. And so I have an Instagram page too. You can see some of the things that I did for my nonprofit, the Mario West Foundation, on Instagram. And then I also have a website for my foundation too as well, the Mario West Foundation Inc.com. And then I have a book, Defend the Dream. I think that we all have gifts and talents that we must tap into, and I think we should tap into. And I think everyone should have a dream, and dreams are, are what makes life tolerable. And my dream was to play in the NBA, and I was able to accomplish that. And so the whole premise behind Defend the Dream, my lane or my forte was being a defender. And so that's why the whole Defend the Dream, like, you got to have tenacity. You got to be persistent. You got to have a little dog in you. You got to have you got to be aggressive, and you got to protect that dream. It's almost like, I have my 2-year-old son. He has like his little favorite toy, whatever it is of that day, and he's like, mine, it's mine. That's how you have to be with your dream, because you're going to have so many people try to deter you from your dream, or you're not good enough, or, why you want to do that? I'm not, and just, those are their limitations, for whatever their reason or their fears. Don't allow that to consume you and talk you out of doing something special. And so, again, the book is called Defend the Dream, the ultimate playbook to achieve any dream in life. You can go on to mariowest.com to purchase your copy of the book, something that I'm very, very proud of. And it talks about my journey, an intimate journey. And it's not a basketball book, but it's a book about life, and it incorporates, has a workbook, and it incorporates life lessons that you can apply to any dream that you want to achieve. And it talks about my journey from the age of 7 all the way till I made the NBA, and some of the obstacles that I had to overcome to pursue my dream.
I love that. So if you're listening, order that book. I'm a huge proponent and believer in at least trying to read. I know that like top people in the world read like a book a month or something like that. I'm like, dude, just get through 4 books a year. Because I prior to COVID, man, I was working like 18-hour days, 7 days a week. So getting through 4 books a year was a big accomplishment for me. And also the great news is we have technology, audiobooks, man. I balance it between both. I do some audiobooks and I do some physical reading books, actually. So we just moved, which is why if you're watching this, my office looks a little chaotic. I usually have this huge stash of books. They're around here somewhere, but I'm reading 2 books right now. Underneath all my papers. So I've actually been reading this book for a little while called Scale Up, and this is just for businesses, and this is a phenomenal book. I actually love this book. I've been reading this book for like months now because there's so much important information in here. I'm an application guy, so when I read something and it's really good, I will quit reading so I can apply it and make the change in my life of whatever I'm reading. I'm like, dude, I suck at this. I need to be better. So I'll stop reading the book so I can apply, and then I'll keep reading. This book has challenged me in some really unique ways. And so it's taken me so long because usually I'll crush books pretty quick. Not with that book. And then I'm reading a book by Todd Herman, and it is Alter Ego. Okay. I met him. He's a great guy. I was at a business thing. He spoke for a little bit, and I just got a chance to talk to him. And they actually gave the books away for free. And I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. It's actually a pretty good book itself. But I've just been busy now with family and moving again and all the fun things. And then my travel schedule has been gnarly. And when I'm on the plane, I hate to say this, because I'm really big on always being productive. But lately when I've been on the planes, man, I'm sleeping. I'm so stinking tired, man. I've got so much going on at home and everything else, dude. I just knock out. So usually I'll crush books on the plane. And because I travel so much, I should be crushing all these books, but it hasn't been happening, man. I've been taking my power naps. But thank you so much for sharing your journey and joining us today. Just being such a informational podcast, because the amount of information that you've shared and practical knowledge is phenomenal. So those of you listening, please, if you were only half paying attention to this, rewatch it, re-listen to it. This was phenomenal. So much perfect, good, just stuff to take and apply. And again, this isn't just for basketball. This is for any sport. All sports athletes, they all go through the same thing. Yeah, Mario played in the NBA, but if you listen to some of my previous podcasts with guys that made it to the NHL or professional fighters or any of those other professional hockey or Major League Baseball, the message is very similar in the journey, and that's important for you guys to take this. And again, so much important and beneficial knowledge in this. So I really appreciate you being with us. And for everybody listening, you're on my podcast, Get It. I'm your host, Stephen Basita. Thank you so much. We're on the Social Nostra Network. And again, please, if you're seeing us on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. I do respond to all of our comments, especially on my Instagram. And thank you for all the interaction there. My Instagram handle will be on the bottom of this page, as well as Mario West. And have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, wherever you're at your day. Thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.